What's up, guys? It's Spartacus here, and I'm sure many of you have already heard the big announcement that happened earlier this week in regards to first-person shooter games, and that is that Xdefiant is shutting down as of December 3rd, and the servers will stay live until June 3rd of 2025, so there's still about 6 to 7 whole months left until the plug is pulled on this game. And honestly, it sucks hearing this, but if I'm being honest with you, I was kind of anticipating something like this would be announced soon. I was actually expecting it to happen maybe more in January after the new year has already started. So it really sucks to hear this at the very beginning of December, right at the start of the holiday season. And so anybody who was working on this game is pretty much going to be out of a job, I'm guessing. And that is just shitty. That's just really shitty to hear that all these people are not going to be having a job leading up to the holiday season. I know exactly what that's like. I lost a job on Christmas Eve before, or the day before Christmas Eve, that is. So yeah, it's definitely not a good feeling at all. And so that really sucks for anybody that's been working on this game, because I really think this game could have potential, but they didn't show that potential when it launched. And we're definitely going to be talking deeper into that in this video. And so another reason why I think I was kind of anticipating like an announcement for something like this to occur soon was because not long after the Black Ops 6 beta released, and a matter of fact, I would say probably like as soon as the Black Ops 6 beta came out for everyone to try out, I didn't see a single person talk about Xdefiant. Everybody's eyes came back to Call of Duty, you know? It's that Call of Duty life cycle, right? You know, it's just, you can never get anybody to stop talking about the game. And so, it was pretty obvious that the shift of focus for everybody became Black Ops 6 instead of Xdefiant. And of course, I think that really just like killed the game. You know, I really think that was a big reason why a lot of attention got moved away from the game, is because the next Call of Duty game came out. And even though I didn't make a whole lot of content on this game, and a matter of fact, I only made 2 videos about Xdefiant, but in my last video, I did point out a big issue with the game, and that was the launch date that they had planned for it. And they did end up releasing the game right before Black Ops 6 came out, because my biggest criticism that I explained in that video was that if they release this game right before the next Call of Duty game comes out, then nobody's going to pay attention to it. And that's exactly what happened. Sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And there's a lot of other reasons why I don't think Xdefiant succeeded. The first reason I'll give, and this is probably the most important point I'll make about the game, is that there wasn't enough uniqueness that Xdefiant had. There was nothing in the game that stood out compared to other multiplayer first-person shooters, and I think that was a big part of why this game fell short and why it's going to be shut down. And, you know, because this game is kind of being looked at as a competitor to Call of Duty, there's a lot of aspects about this game, like core mechanic-wise, that are similar to COD or the same as Call of Duty, but they don't do it better than COD. So you look at like the movement, the gunfights, and even the progression system if you wanted to. Those 3 things, Call of Duty does better than Xdefiant. So if you're trying to get a Call of Duty player over to play a new game and stay dedicated to it, it's going to be a lot harder to do that if your game engine and just the game itself doesn't run nearly as smooth as Call of Duty. And unfortunately, Call of Duty just has everybody by the throat when it comes to how smooth their game can feel, and that's part of the reason why it's the best-selling game every single year too, right? And if I'm going to continue to keep making comparisons of Xdefiant and Call of Duty, which I'm sure most people are doing anyway, I might as well compare this game to Black Ops 4, because if I'm being completely honest with you guys, when this game fully came out, when the game was fully launched and I started playing it, I couldn't help but think to myself, I was just playing a worse version of Black Ops 4, because there was just so many things about Xdefiant that were trying to create the definition of what the game is that was really just the same thing we saw in Black Ops 4. And what I'm referring to is actually the specialists that we had in Black Ops 4 to the factions that we have in Xdefiant. So, for example, you look at the Cleaners faction that we have in Xdefiant, their main ability is the flamethrower, right? Their Ultra, I guess is what they call it, is a flamethrower. Well, in Black Ops 4, we have a character named Firebreak, and his specialist weapon is the Purifier. rimfire, and that is also a flamethrower, so we can check that off as a comparison. Another comparison we can check off is the Echelon faction. They have an ability that allows you to see enemy players through walls, and it allows your teammates to see those players through walls as well. Now, I don't know if they changed that since the game launched, because I know there was plenty of updates since I stopped playing, so maybe that has changed a little bit, but there was an ability when I played that allowed you to see enemy players through walls. Well, Black Ops 4 has a specialist named Recon, and their ability is called Vision Pulse that does literally the exact same thing. And then there is a third faction that I would like to compare called DeadSec, and they have a piece of equipment that I'm sure you're all well aware of how annoying it is, called the Spider Bot, right? Well, there was also a really annoying piece of equipment in Black Ops 4 called the Seeker Shock Mine that was for the Prophet specialist character that literally did practically the same thing. In fact, I would actually argue the DeadSec Spider Bot is way worse than what we had in Black Ops 4 for the Seeker Shock Mine, simply because it actually had a quick time event for you to actually get it detached off of you, where they never had that with Xdefiant on the Spider Bots, at least since I was playing it. And so there's just right there alone is already major comparisons I'm making to Black Ops 4. And don't get me wrong, when it comes to like creating like a hero shooter type of first person shooter, right, which I guess is what you could call Xdefiant because of the factions, I get it would be hard to come up with other types of abilities, especially since they both games are first person shooters, and it makes sense to have like a flamethrower, for example, as like an ultra or specialist weapon. So, you know, there's obviously standard things that you could bring into a video game to make comparisons, but you get my point, I'm sure, right? And another thing I would like to mention of why I think this game had also shut down is that I felt like there was too many false promises being made about this game, and it was just too little and too late to actually add them. And obviously it is too late to add them because the game is going to be shut down. And so what I mean by this is Mark Rubin, who of course is the executive producer of this game, he is of course also an ex-Call of Duty developer, so he definitely has a really good understanding on first-person shooters, and I do love Mark. I actually really love Mark Rubin. I love what he was trying to do with Xdefiant, and we'll definitely talk about that more near the end of the video. But I definitely felt like he was giving out a lot of false promises. A big example I can give is Prestige mode. Right now, supposedly, I don't know this for sure because I haven't been paying attention to the game, but I guess Season 3 was going to be launching here pretty soon for the game, and I guess Prestige mode was supposed to be coming out for Season 3, and in my opinion, Prestige mode should have been there at launch, and the reason why I say that is because well before the open alpha, I believe it was an open alpha and not a beta, that we had for Xdefiant, and everybody had their first chance to actually play the game for themselves. Well before we even had a chance to play the game, Mark Rubin wanted this game to have a Prestige mode. He openly said to everyone that they have plans to add a Prestige mode. And it should have been there at launch. It absolutely should have been there at launch. And from my own personal experience, I actually was really disappointed about Xdefiant day one. And the reason for that is because I felt like there was features in the game that were there during the open alpha that were not there during the full launch. A great example of that is the practice zone. Now, I can't remember if the entire practice zone just wasn't available at launch, but I do remember a particular part of the practice zone wasn't available, and that was the area where you can test out your ultras and abilities, and that was locked off like ever since I stopped playing. And so I'm sure it's there now, but still, it's like, how can you have the full access of a practice zone during your open alpha, but not there at launch for your game? It's just unacceptable in my opinion, and that just should not happen in this day and age in gaming. One of the last discussion points I want to have in this video is, how does Xdefiant's shutdown affect Call of Duty? Because if you look at my YouTube channel, you'll obviously see that I am a Call of Duty fanboy. I love Call of Duty to death, and I probably always will. But I have recognized that how far downhill the game franchise has gone at a certain point, honestly, since probably Black Ops 4, I'd say that this franchise has really gone in a downhill trend in just my eyes, you know. And the reason why I say that is because I feel like with each year that Call of Duty comes out, it seems like that the titles, like there's aspects of the game that are improving that make the experience better, but then there's like another aspect of the game that just doesn't get better. And it seems like we have to revert those changes in like either the next title or in some future update. And honestly, I'm getting kind of sick of it. I mean, I am sick of it at this point. And I think part of the reason why there's been so much inconsistency with Call of Duty and there hasn't really been that much significant improvement with the game is because of lack of competition. And even though I am unaware, I am not for sure that if Mark Rubin or any of the other developers on Xdefiant, I'm not sure if their intention was to have a direct competitor with Call of Duty, but that is what the community was at least making the game out to be. And so with that being said, it just showed that like Call of Duty was clearly the winner in, I guess, the situation, because, and it's like I said at the beginning of this video, I just felt like as soon as the Black Ops 6 beta came out, all the focus just shifted to Call of Duty. And I think part of the reason for that is there was a lot of great announcements that were coming to Black Ops 6 that we hadn't seen in a while for Call of Duty. For example, we all of a sudden got a prestige mode. Does nobody else like think to themselves that it's so coincidental that we got ourselves a prestige mode in the next Call of Duty title shortly after we hear Mark Rubin saying they're going to have a classic prestige mode in their game? I don't know. It just seems kind of too close for comfort in my opinion. And it's kind of I don't know, maybe too far of a stretch of a conspiracy theory to put out there, but like, I just think it's too coincidental that we hear Mark Rubin announce that they're going to have a prestige mode in Xdefiant, and then all of a sudden classic prestige comes back to Call of Duty. I don't know. I don't know, man. I'm not sure how I feel about that talk right there. But Call of Duty now has one less competitor up there. And Xdefiant was the biggest talking point when it came to first-person shooters and at being a competitor to Call of Duty. And now Call of Duty is in this position where, because there is one less competitor off their back, whatever demands that we have for Activision to put in place for Call of Duty, they don't necessarily need to meet, because they're like, oh, well, if people aren't going to be playing this game, they'll be playing our game, and what's going to happen if we don't meet these demands? Whether you're going to play another game, you know, that's the kind of mindset I have and the way Activision thinks about this situation, but I could be completely wrong, and I'm just like overreacting when it comes to this thought process. But I mean, seriously though, a competition is good for the industry, and if there isn't any competition and there's just one multiplayer first-person shooter that reigns above them all, then whatever demand that is for the Call of Duty, Activision doesn't feel like it needs to be met because everybody's already playing their game and spending money. So that really sucks. I wish Xdefiant could be successful. I know I only uploaded 2 videos on the game, and I know I didn't even play after Season 1 launched, and that's mostly due to me just being really busy with real life stuff, because quite frankly, I haven't been playing nearly as much as Call of Duty as I've been wanting to. I really saw what Mark Rubin's vision was for this game. He was trying to push this agenda that was really positive for the first-person shooter industry. I mean, for example, they created this game with no skill-based matchmaking, really trying to put that as like the standard for casual matchmaking, that it should not be based on skill. Connection should strictly be the only reason to play online games, unless of course you're playing ranked play, then yes, there should be some form of skill-based matchmaking. And he also had constant open communication with the player base. I was always seeing him reply to like every single person he came across on Twitter when it came to feedback for Xdefiant, and you do not see that with any other developer out there when it comes to multiplayer games. Maybe there is some out there like that, but I mean, when it comes to like AAA, like Call of Duty first-person shooters, I mean, the amount of responses he was replying to, like, oh my goodness, this guy was on top of feedback. He was taking every bit of little feedback that everybody was putting out there, so that way they can look into it. And I appreciate that so much, something we don't really see anymore with any like games out there, to be honest with you. And so I have a huge amount of respect for Mark Rubin for really just simply trying to make arcade first-person multiplayer games great again. And so It's sad. It's sad to see Xdefiant go. I will probably give it one last hurrah at some point. I just got to remember to play it before June 3rd of next year. So anyway, this video's gone on long enough. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are brand new, and of course, comment down below what were your guys' thoughts on Xdefiant. Were you a dedicated player to it? Were you somebody who was grinding throughout the camos, or maybe going through the ranks in ranked play? Let me know what you guys thought about Xdefiant down below in the comments. And as always, I shall catch you guys later.